I was standing in the hallway of my parents' house when I heard my mother's voice through the door. Clara. Oh, she won't even notice. She's too busy playing house with that failing cafe of hers. My younger brother laughed in the background. They were talking about Grandma's estate. Without me. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just forgotten. I was erased. My name is Clara. I'm 26 years old. I ran a small community cafe on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Just good coffee, homemade pastries, and a place where people felt welcome. I worked double shifts most weeks. I never asked my parents for money. I was proud of that. Growing up, I was the practical one. My brother? He was flashy, charming, always got what he wanted. My parents used to light up when he walked into a room. They'd say, "He's going places." When they talked about me, it was more like, "She'll figure it out." But my grandma was different. She visited my cafe every single week. She'd sit by the window with her tea and tell me she was proud of me. Not because I was successful or rich, just because I showed up. Because I cared. Before she passed, she held my hand and said, "You'll be taken care of. Don't worry." I believed her. I thought her will reflected that. I wasn't chasing luxury or approval. I just wanted to be seen. If you've ever been pushed aside by your own family, subscribe right now and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happened next showed me exactly where I stood. 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral, my parents called a family meeting at their house. I showed up thinking we'd talk about her things, maybe split a few keepsakes. I don't know, something normal. My brother was already there when I walked in. He was leaning back in Dad's chair, arms crossed, smirking like he'd already won something. Dad cleared his throat. "We need to discuss your grandmother's estate." I nodded. "Okay." Mom slid a single envelope across the table toward me. I opened it. Inside was a check. For $2,000. I stared at it. "Wait, that's it?" Dad didn't even look at me. "Your brother is getting the house. We're splitting the savings. You're getting a small token." "A token?" My voice cracked. "Grandma told me I'd be taken care of." My brother cut me off. "Yeah, well, maybe she changed her mind." Mom's tone was ice cold. "Clara, you have your little cafe. You don't need this like he does." I felt my chest tighten. Grandma never mentioned changing anything. She promised me. Dad raised his voice. "This is what's fair. Don't be selfish." I asked to see the will, just to understand. My parents exchanged a look. Mom said, "It's already been filed. It's done." That's when I noticed the document sitting on the edge of the table. I leaned forward. The will was dated 3 weeks before Grandma died. 3 weeks. That was when she was in the hospital, barely coherent, heavily medicated. My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. I stood up, grabbed the envelope, and left without another word. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open my car door. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. A week later, my parents hosted a private memorial dinner for Grandma. "Close family only," they said. I wasn't invited. I found out when my aunt posted a photo online. There was my brother, arm around my mom, holding Grandma's favorite silver bracelet, the one she used to let me try on when I was little. I texted my mom. "Why wasn't I told about the dinner?" Her reply came an hour later. "We thought you'd be too busy." I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the chest. But I wasn't done yet. A few days later, I went to the bank. I remembered that years ago, Grandma had added me as a co-signer on one of her accounts. Just in case. I thought maybe there was something left. Some small piece of her that they hadn't taken. The bank manager looked uncomfortable when I asked. He hesitated. Then he said the account had been closed a month before Grandma died. Closed by who? I asked. Your parents. I felt my face go hot, humiliated. I felt like a fool for even asking. As I turned to leave, I heard one of the tellers whisper to another, family drama, always ugly. I wanted to disappear. Then, a few days after that, my phone rang. It was my mom. Suddenly, she was warm, sweet even. Honey, we were thinking, since you're so good with organizing, maybe you could help us sort through Grandma's things. I didn't say anything. She kept going. Your brother's moving into the house soon, and we just need someone to pack up her belongings. You know, the little stuff. Translation: they wanted free labor. They wanted me to clean out my grandmother's house so my brother could move in and erase her. I couldn't help it. My voice came out bitter. You didn't invite me to her memorial, but you want me to pack her belongings? Mom's tone shifted immediately. Don't be dramatic, Clara. We're trying to include you. I hung up. For a few days after that, I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe I was making this about me when it shouldn't be. Maybe they were right, and I just didn't want to accept it. But then I remembered Grandma's voice. The last real conversation we had, before the hospital, before the confusion. She'd said, "You're stronger than they think, Clara." And I decided I wasn't letting this go. What they didn't know was that I had something they forgot about. Years ago, Grandma gave me a lockbox. She'd handed it to me one afternoon at the café and said, "Just in case." I'd never opened it. I thought it was sentimental. Maybe some jewelry or old photos. But now, I unlocked it. Inside was a handwritten letter, addressed to me, and underneath that, a copy of an earlier will, dated 2 years before she died, when she was still sharp, still herself. In it, Grandma split everything equally between me and my brother. The house was supposed to be sold, and we'd divide the money. Fair, clean, the way she always was. Her letter said, "If anything feels wrong, trust your gut." I made sure you'd have proof. My hands shook as I read it. She knew. She knew my parents might try something. At the bottom of the box was a business card. Mr. Daniels. Her old lawyer. The one my parents didn't use. I finally had what I needed. But using it? That meant war. I called Mr. Daniels the next morning. He was older, sharp, and he'd known my grandma for 30 years. When I showed him the newer will, the one my parents filed, his face hardened. "Your grandmother would never have written this," he said. She was explicit about fairness. He agreed to file a challenge, pro bono, because he'd respected her. Meanwhile, my parents got bolder. My brother started posting renovation plans on social media. "Excited for my new place," he wrote, with photos of Grandma's house. My mom bragged to relatives. "He's finally settling down." It made me sick. Then my aunt reached out, the same one who'd posted the memorial photo. She sent me a private message. Something didn't sit right with me either. "If you need a witness, I'm here." She told me she'd visited Grandma the week before she died. Grandma had been confused, asking, "Where's Clara? Why hasn't she come?" My aunt said my parents had been limiting visitors, controlling who saw her. They'd isolated her, so they could control the narrative. That's when I got a text from my brother. "Stop stirring shit, you lost, move on." I didn't reply. I was done talking. A week later, I arranged a meeting at Mr. Daniels's office. I told my parents and brother it was to discuss the estate. They thought it was a formality. Maybe they thought I was giving up. They showed up annoyed. My brother walked in first. "What's this about, Clara? You already got your share." I stayed calm. "No, I got what you decided I deserved." My parents rolled their eyes. Then Mr. Daniels walked in. My dad froze. "What's he doing here?" I looked right at him, Grandma's lawyer. The real one. Mr. Daniels placed the earlier will on the table. My mom's face went white. That was voided. I leaned forward. By a document signed when she could barely speak. Witnessed by people she didn't know. The lawyer spoke up. The newer will shows clear signs of undue influence, possibly coercion. My brother's voice cracked. This is ridiculous. I pulled out Grandma's letter and read it aloud. I want my grandchildren to share equally. Clara has always been there for me, even when others were too busy. My mom tried to argue. She was old, confused. That's when my aunt stepped into the room. I'd asked her to come. She wasn't confused when I saw her, my aunt said. She was asking for Clara. You kept her away. Silence. My dad's face turned red. You're tearing this family apart over money. My voice broke, but I kept it steady. No. You did that when you erased me. Mr. Daniels folded his hands. We're filing a formal challenge. If you fight this, it goes public. If you settle now, we can do this quietly. My parents looked at each other. They knew they'd lose, and worse, they'd look horrible. My brother finally spoke, his voice bitter. Fine. Take the house. Take everything. I shook my head. I don't want everything. I want what Grandma intended. Fairness. They agreed to mediation. The second will was voided. The estate was split equally, just like Grandma wanted. Weeks later, I walked away with my share. I used it to expand the café. I hired 2 staff members. I started a scholarship in Grandma's name for young people trying to start their own businesses. My parents never apologized. They barely speak to me now. My brother unfriended me online, but I feel lighter than I have in years. For once, their silence didn't hurt me. It freed me. I realized I'd spent so long chasing their approval, trying to prove I mattered, trying to earn a place at a table that was never meant for me. Now, I know my worth isn't tied to their opinion. Grandma saw me. That was enough. Last week, I hung a framed photo of her in the café, right by the window where she used to sit. Underneath, I put a small plaque. It says, "For the ones who see us." If you've ever had to fight for what's rightfully yours, hit that subscribe button and tell me your story in the comments. Where are you watching from? I read every single one. You're not alone in this. And if someone in your life has ever made you feel invisible, remember, your worth isn't up for debate. You decide that. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.